Hi, this is Matt O'Leary, and my neighbor is mowing his lawn. Today I'll be reviewing Mumford's third album, and this is my family's reaction so far. This is follow-up to Babel, a huge sellout album in my opinion, and almost an exact replica of Sigh No More, their first album. Sigh showed great potential with this simplicity that was really charming. I mean, it's your first album, so hopefully it'd be your most elementary. I was hoping they'd experiment with their folk roots a little bit more on their second album, but they managed to release something even more mundane. Upon noticing that the Hopeless Wanderer video was actually their official video, I realized that they're just the Nickelback of folk music. They managed to make the banjo, this folk sound, very gimmicky, and in the same way that Nickelback took the grunge sound from Nirvana and Soundgarden from the early 90s and just made a poppier, much worse version of it. So now they promise us a new sound, but it's not really a new sound at all because all their songs from the past were just simple indie rock songs with a banjo and a stand-up bass thrown in there. There was nothing folk about it, really. So when these gimmicky distractions are stripped away, you realize how narrow the vision for their music has been all along. And this album falls right into that as the most banal, bland, and brainless thing I've heard all year. Now before you write this off as just another reviewer jumping on the hate bandwagon, hear me out. You shouldn't dislike stuff just because it's popular. But this band had a chance to influence the music industry in such a positive way. They had the world's attention and a glimmer of creative sound on their first record, and then they blew it. They fell victim to the lamest cliche in music, and that's worthy of a little disappointment in my opinion. As for the actual music on this thing, there's not much to talk about. There's lots of classic fourth harmonies like in the songs Only Love or Hot Gates. There's just Strokes drum beat and Wilder Mind that has me really wishing this was hard to explain. There's the usual mysterious slow builds to these sing-along, stomping, clappable choruses like in Broad Shouldered Beast or the first single Believe. Believe is an amusing track really because it reminds me of the time that I guessed the name of the first single from this American Idol winner like 5 years ago. I think the song was called Home. And if I had one life or death guess as to what the next Mumford song would be called, I think I'd have a pretty good shot with Believe. The way they play up the epicness of this mind-numbingly repetitive chorus is just yug. There are definitely a couple moments of musical redemption on this album, like the opening track Tompkins Square Park, or the second single The Wolf, which was, it had this amazing energy when they performed it live. But even those tunes lose momentum due to a lack of experimentation. And an uninspired guitar solo on The Wolf that sounds like Marcus Mumford literally strapped a Strat to the back of his baby's son and taught him 2 notes. With this extremely inoffensive instrumentation, they've went almost full U2 or Coldplay, but this is an imitation of a sound that's just not modern. I mean, you have to admire them from stepping away from this hipstery neo-rusticism, but they've replaced it with, well, nothing. I mean, this is a rather polarizing group that you either love or hate. But by ridding themselves of the one element that made them Mumford and set them apart, they've went to the band that everyone else sounds like to the band that sounds like everyone else. So they took their biggest fans and their biggest critics and made them all just kind of like, meh. None of these songs on their own are actually that offensive or annoying or bad, but it's that consistent averageness that makes this such a forgettable album. Seems like the logical next step is an Imagine Dragons sound, but I'm not hanging around to find out. This is a 3.5 out of 10.
Alright.